Hey, we're on the internet.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah, I was told I had to introduce the show this time.
Yeah,
around.
you're in
All right,
charge.
welcome to SonarFeed, episode 296. Another trip to the airport.
So nonchalant
Yeah,
the way
well,
you say that.
Well, they keep those things so under wraps. It's not like it was back in the day with Dempsey Watch when you had Cresco and leading a merry band of people down.
Thanks, Matt
to hunt
Oak.
down Clint Dempsey.
Wow. We've got the singing gallery happening here at the bar tonight. So, welcome to SonarFeed at the Berliner Pub in downtown Renton.
4th and Main.
Wow, they're closer this
Yes.
time, so I fear
Yeah,
that
as
they're
you
going
get
to
closer
be
to the season,
they're going to be
you
louder
get
than normal.
You get more in tune with everything.
Apparently, our stream didn't start automatically.
Oh, wow.
But it could just be you not talking into the microphone.
Well, it says we're live, so I'm going to take that as a win.
Yeah, it's on.
I guess I'll introduce us while you get that fixed up or whatever you need to get fixed up. My name is Mickey Turner. Turner ESQ on the Twitters. To my right, your left. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Secret leftist. Tom Bureau, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of preseason. We don't have much to talk about, so we'll probably just sit here and banter about all sorts of things because the Sounders have been out of town for the last week and still won't be back for another couple of 3 days. So that said, I guess we do have a couple of things to talk about, a couple of impending arrivals. One who was apparently at the airport at some point today, based on rumor and innuendo.
You know, there were some Chris Henderson people with cameras.
Camera crews.
At an airport that would, generally speaking, mean something happened, but who could...
That is true. He's really going
That,
to
by the way, is
far
when you
lengths to
realize
throw us
that,
off the scent.
That Sounders have too much money. Like, if
Yes.
that's the case, then they're just sending random people. Yeah.
Yeah, how do I get that job? Yeah, I'll go to Brazil
I
and
don't
just
know.
post photos
that
in
sounds
random
kinda fun.
stadiums.
So I
Seems like a
opened-
good gig.
I opened Sounder at Heart and my computer slowed down dramatically. So I just had to share that with everyone
Yes.
in case they were concerned.
I will. I'll refer that complaint to management and see
They'll
what I can
laugh.
do.
I got less fruit that time, so I'll be safe. Anyway, so let's see. Since we were here last, did we know about one of these things? I thought we knew about the Paolo.
Yes, I think the
We
João
thought that was
Paulo
coming.
is the one that appeared to be the first in line, and I still think it is. So that
The first to probably actually happen.
the first probably actually happened. I think they're both highly likely to happen, as everyone probably knows at this point. It's kind of one of those worst kept secret things at this point. So it'd be, I don't know what it would take for either one of them to fall apart. Although the New England situation, they lost a player or a TAM player because he couldn't get his visa.
Yeah.
So I guess nothing's impossible, especially with the current State Department in place.
Although apparently, Cecchini has become a really valuable trading chip or something for the Sounders.
Yes,
with
yes.
a deal that the Sounders haven't announced so far as Alex Caulfield actually tweeted, like, what? Or something, or oh?
Yes.
Like, he didn't know, or he just wanted to play along, which is very possible.
I'd say there's a combination of both of those things
But I think when
happening.
your team has tweeted that you are out of there, that's probably official at that point. Although today, was it Nico, I think, had tweeted, had posted that he probably won't be around until sometime like a week before CCL.
I'm hearing, and I'm certainly not one to dispute Nico's sources. He's certainly more ingrained than I am.
And we're talking about Gomez Andrade.
Yes.
Yeah.
They expect, I think, both of them to be here this week. Whether that actually happens is entirely up in the air. But
Well, then they can hang out with the two men's national team players that have been released.
also been returned, yes.
Which
That's
I'm
a bit of a pleasant surprise.
Extremely happy about that because there really was no need for them to be hanging out with the national team right now because no one cares
Yeah, I would say.
except AO. Sorry, AO. My bad.
I would say, as far as that's concerned, they did get an extra week of training. They're not in the game, which is just short of worthless.
Right.
against a Costa Rican C team, and that's probably
that
probably
even
putting
mean?
it lightly. Yeah. So it could have been worse. They're healthy. They got an extra week of training. They're fit. They're gonna have a month almost to, 3 weeks to get ready for CCL. So, yeah, you could be annoyed, especially given the fact that teams like Atlanta didn't release their players at all.
Yeah.
But are they really out anything? Probably not. So.
Well, it's not like the whole rest of the team is gone, like we had at various points last year. It was like, 10-plus players multiple times in 2019. We should expect to see that a couple times this year, most likely. But let's hope it doesn't get quite that extreme. So that's positive news.
Yeah.
And frankly, like removing the risk for injury for those players, while they're out away from Sounders, always a plus.
Yeah, and they'll be back, and so we'll get to see them in action, although not in any games because the Sounders don't apparently have any games that are going to be either streamed live or open to the public this preseason, which actually that's a departure from pretty much every previous preseason in Sounders history since they dedicated streaming. The next game is a closed-door friendly on the 5th of February. Versus Sacramento Republic. I believe it's going to be at CenturyLink Field, as a matter of fact.
That's what I had heard as well. So we'll all have friends who live at the Wave, and we'll just go to the roof, and we'll all just watch from there.
Yeah, it's a little too bad they're not going to stream it, but they're not in any tournaments, any of the preseason tournaments like the Tucson Cup or what's the one in South Carolina. Can't remember. Anyway.
I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, but they're not in any of those tournaments this year. And since they're going to be gone for 2 weeks in Mexico, or 3 weeks, and then they're going directly from Mexico to Honduras for that opening leg, this is probably as little access as we, the fan base and media, have had to the Sounders in preseason pretty much ever.
Do you think these decisions were made before they went as far as they did, winning MLS Cup? Think they just chose to do different things?
No,
I just like this is a new way of operating.
Well, I would say as soon as they found out they were in CCL, their plans likely changed. Yeah, because they certainly wouldn't be going to Mexico if they weren't in CCL. That would just be an unnecessary, unneeded expense. So, yeah, as soon as that happened, I'm sure that's when they started making those plans. And unfortunately, good for them. They're in obviously an important tournament, and we all want to see them perform well. And if going down to Mexico helps them acclimate to the conditions, although I guess they're not playing. San Pedro, is that at sea level-ish? I know. What's the ground that they're not playing on? I guess we could talk about that too a little bit. Although I guess we talked a little bit about this last week. Yeah, that the Sounders are not playing at Olympia's home ground because the stadium's not suitable, so they're playing at San Pedro Sula, which I think has a higher humidity, element to it as opposed to being.
Elevation is a whopping 272
Yes,
feet.
Okay, so there is no elevation.
So it's like, what, 4th and Pike?
Yes.
Like, somewhere around there.
But the conditions can radically change at those levels.
Some of the other things, whether we're talking about humidity or just general temperature, things like that. So we're looking at so where are we? February.
It's gonna be hot.
Average temperature is 86.7.
Yeah, it's not gonna be pleasant.
The record high is 103. So let's go for none of the 103 and some of the 86.7.
Yes. And the game is at night, I think.
And it's late, too.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. We can probably talk about the news that came out today as well on the CCL front. That Fox has picked up the broadcast for Champions League. English rights. I guess either Telemundo or TUDN previously had the Spanish rights. And this is obviously good news because that previously the last, 3 years? I want to say since 2016 when the last time it was 4 MLS teams versus 4 Mexican teams, or maybe it was 2017, in the CCL, that was the last time Fox had the rights. So, it's been almost 3 years since they've been on over-the-air cable, I should say, television. It just
is there Spanish language TV as well?
Yeah,
there is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you probably
that
saw
was already
the
set
ratings
up
thing that had come out the other day.
Yeah,
Was it even like MLS ratings? It was just like any soccer match in the United States that like the Spanish speaking broadcast was like
3 to 5x.
Like every time.
Yeah,
it was actually kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean that's just
I'm like, on one hand, I'm not surprised at all.
No,
on the other hand, I'm like, people maybe think about doing a little bit more here. And I don't remember who it was. It was an MLSist or somebody was Pablo Maurer or somebody was tweeting about it, and they were like, weird. It's like teams are actively not paying attention to this and doing anything. I'm like, most of MLS isn't paying attention or doing anything with that. And frankly, this is still a thing for Sounders. Like we've talked about it a number of times. It came up pretty harshly after some Joe Roth comments a few years back. It's come up since then once or twice at either like annual business meetings or like other events. It seems like every so often there's sort of like a step in a direction. But, having spoken with a number of people in the Latino community in Seattle, or kind of greater Seattle, if you will, let alone going out to Yakima and other parts, east of the mountains and south and whatnot. That's something we should maybe look into a little bit more. I don't know. It just feels really, really short-sighted, and like, it's not like it's a one-off piece of, data point. It's like, here's 10 matches, and every single one of them, especially when we're talking about the men's and women's national team matches, like every single one of them has a data point that's blowing away. In what cases are typically like over-the-air broadcasts that are in English, things like that. So
I would say that that's a problem that the league has been grappling with for years now. Well, I think they initially were trying to focus their attention on getting the casual American soccer fan and the quote-unquote Euro snob, bringing over a bunch of high-priced older European players. That worked to varying degrees. Beckham, I think it's fair to say it worked, but with like Lampard and Pirlo and Gerrard and those guys, it didn't work at all. Didn't move the needle at all. And I think they've learned that that's not where the pot at the end of the rainbow is, and it's definitely with the Spanish language, Spanish speaking. Viewer in this country, which is why they've done the Leagues Cup and the Campeones Cup, and why one Chicharito Hernandez has now signed with LA Galaxy. And so you're going to continue to see that collaboration. And so I think MLS gets it. It's just a matter of converting that new philosophy into additional viewers. I think to some degree, the quote-unquote Euro snob is a lost cause, and it's questionable as to how much that's worth anyway. So I think they've rightly given up on those demographics. And so that leaves you with trying to get the casual soccer fan, American soccer fan, who maybe catches one or two MLS games a year, but otherwise basically tunes out. And then the Spanish language is, I think that's where the money is. Because if you get half of those converted over to MLS, that's close to doubling your ratings there.
If you see today, the word that Chicago is chasing Pizarro from the where is he at Monterrey,
I think. Yes.
And they're talking $15 million to pull him out of there.
I'll be surprised if they do that, but
I mean that'd be nuts.
Them. Yeah,
but like it was pretty clear that it was at least buzz Chicago was in the discussion for Chicharito, which them moving to a new park and just trying to do something very different.
New old park,
yes. Yeah, new old park isn't terribly surprising ultimately, but it does still feel like we're like, well, let's push the expansion team button and let's maybe think about going after like the Spanish speaking population, and then we'll push the expansion button again, and then they're like,
they'll be pushing the expansion button another 4 or 5 times.
They're turning all the knobs on the board here on the show, and they're like, weird, it doesn't sound great when we do that. I wonder what we should do next. And they're like, let's get Chicharito.
Yeah, this is all about 2022/23 when the TV deal runs out. 100%. And I mean, because right now their ratings are terrible by any objective measure.
It's not great, and I think that's one thing. Like having a number of friends who don't care about MLS but are huge soccer fans. That's like the first thing they throw in your face is you're like, well, did you look at the ratings? This random Burnley Watford game got 1.1 million or million viewers, and then whoever whatever
the LA versus
Derby is got 380,000, and you're like,
oh, it barely gets
well,
that. So that's what that is all geared to is trying to get that TV deal and goose that to the extent that the greatest extent that they can, because that TV deal is kind of in a weird place because it's right in the middle of the World Cup cycles. Especially the 2026 one, which is where in theory MLS I think is putting all their chips to do things. So I don't know how this is going to affect the TV deal as far as the length is concerned, and then you got the CBA, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
But this is where the NFL, the thing people hate to talk about because it's not doesn't really come up anymore, is the NFL went with the TV blackout situation in order to get people to buy tickets.
Yes.
MLS is like, we're going to just keep expanding infinitely, and we're going to overcharge you for tickets in stadiums that are 40 miles away from a major city, and whatever. And they're not putting enough things in place in order to kind of, you got to lean one way or the other. And it feels like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, truly. And aren't really focusing on a thing that will work really well, nailing that, and then moving on a little bit.
I guess on the bright side, they've tried a number of things and they haven't worked, so they've crossed them off and moved on to the next thing. But I think they're going to focus on the Spanish language and the Latino demographic here, because that's, in addition to that demographic being the most receptive to soccer. They're probably the most receptive out of those who are not watching to MLS. As we talked about, Euro snobs and the casual fans and the pro-rellers. Two of those three are likely never
pro-rellers.
Yes.
Haven't heard that.
I didn't just make that up. I don't know. Don't sue me. Don't sue me for either defamation or copyright.
Is Ted even around?
He's still alive. Yes. As long as you don't say it 3 times, you're all right.
That would actually be... No, that would not be the top person that if they showed up at the bar, I would not want them to come on the show. I have another. But anyway, it is interesting to see that conversation having been tamped down pretty significantly, even on MLS Reddit. You see it a lot less than you used to.
That what shall not be named.
Dave calls it row L. All right. Anyway. So you genuinely feel like the league and its member clubs are going to make a concerted effort to go in that direction?
Yeah, I think they're going to do everything they can. We'll see if they actually put actual dollars behind it.
Yeah. Do you think Miami maybe makes a big dent here?
I think their issues are more competence than desire, just because they've had such a problem getting that team off the ground even. Yeah. And then you have them trying to get the stadium done, which they have still not done, and it's not even close. I mean, their temporary one that'll be on time, and that'll be fine. But their actual proper in Miami, county or the surrounding area, as opposed to up in Fort Lauderdale.
Do you know how big the temporary park is? Do you know how big the temporary?
About 18,000, I think. 18 to 20,000.
Do you think they might play bigger matches out where the Dolphins play? Because that stadium now, once they renovated it, it's actually great for soccer.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Structured it.
I would say the answer to that is no, because Stephen Ross, who owns the Dolphins, absolutely... Well, okay, he doesn't... I don't know what his personal opinion of MLS is, but he is in a continuous fight with both MLS and U.S. Soccer. He has sued them, or his company has, the Federation 4 times, I want to say, at least 3, and there's a current lawsuit going. He's trying to bring foreign league games here and has been trying to do that for several years. So he's currently suing the Federation. So I doubt he would allow MLS to use their stadium. So that is a hard pass or a hard no on that one.
Okay. Yeah. Although we will see NYCFC playing at, 19
Yeah, God, that is.
Stadia.
I don't even think they've announced where they're playing CCL games yet. They're still working on where they're going to play. I mean, they could be 2 and done, but I don't think they've announced a home venue for the first game.
They're going to play at Yale.
Yeah, that'd be a kind of cool place to play. But I don't think they're expecting much of a crowd for that, so they don't want to. Yankee Stadium, for whatever reason, not available. Met Stadium, Shea is not available, or whatever it's called. They're not going to play at Red Bulls. That is an absolute non-starter. And then they're not going to play at Jets Giant Stadium because that's just way too big. And so they could play in Connecticut at I can't remember what the name of that place. It starts with an R, Rent Shower or something like that. But that's not. I mean, they could play there. That is an option. But otherwise, they could play at Columbia maybe. But it's going to be a bad look for the league. Just it is not going to be good.
And their match is that same week too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. We could pull up the schedule. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of that week, and how
do you not announce? I don't know. As somebody with a season ticket to a thing, I would be really annoyed to not have a clue what I was doing for multiple matches during a season, and the fact that the ticket you selected at Yankee Stadium is definitely not going to be the same ticket when you play at Citi Field. It's a different size. It's a different
configuration.
The way the sections are set up is different. It's altogether a whole nother animal. It's
possible
super dumb.
Yeah, it's possible that is not included in their season ticket package.
Very much
as
so.
well.
Yeah.
And my guess is it was probably
that's
not.
How the Sounders work this season. That it's anything after that first match
is you pay as you go.
Yeah.
So again, I do not know this for sure, but my guess is that first NYCFC game is not part of the season ticket package because they don't know where they're going to play, and the crowd that they're going to get for that. I mean, that would probably be a reason to put it in the season ticket package to force them to pay for it. But if they haven't figured out where that game's going to be, then you can't really sell tickets for it, and it's going to be a mess. I'm trying to look up and see if they have found announced a place, but they're probably going to. The rumor was they're going to play out at Coney Island at that baseball stadium, which is actually it's a kind of a cool view, but it's a terrible place to play a game. It's horrible, and that thing has been a disaster ever since they were apparently close. They say they were close to getting a stadium right before they announced the team. They went ahead. They took the money. They wanted the New York market for the TV deal coming in 2015, and it bit them in the backside. And now they're going. They say that they're close. They are not close.
So this is
I don't think they're happy
for them, right?
Yeah, I would say
right?
It's going to be another 10 years before they get a stadium.
So because they got 3 years, and then they allowed them to renew the 3 years to stay in Yankee Stadium, right?
Which they're paying $1 million a game for.
So now we're at year 6.
And there's nothing there's not a proposal. There haven't been stadium renderings. There hasn't been a feasibility study. There's been chatter. That is it. There's been nothing of substance to say that they are even close to getting a stadium built. The last thing I heard was that it was basically all lip service. That was 6 months ago. Again, this is secondhand information, so I don't want to say that I've heard from two sources high up in the organization or anything like that. So very much secondhand information, but it is based on what we know. I very much believe it that they are nowhere. They haven't even started. They haven't even thought about starting really. That's how far away they are from getting a stadium. So my over/under is 9.5 years from now. Them getting into
There's
a stadium.
There's going to be NYC 3 by then. Yeah. They'll just have another team, which, by the way, will get a stadium.
Yeah.
And then they'll just let them stay at Yankee Stadium. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
I don't get it. But, again,
they wanted that sweet New York City TV
yeah,
demographic.
That's fine.
And actually they get terrible ratings by and large, so it
didn't
even work.
The fascist supporters need a team too.
Yes, that's also
true. So, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, did you see the tweet of the Lazio display? And it was the hand
the
god,
two hands pointing. Yes,
that's So someone tweeted, like, it was really nice of Lazio to make a tifo to point out the fascists or something, which is amazing because it's like the core of the section is right in the middle of the two hands. So that's fantastic.
That was pretty great.
I think trolling Lazio, like, that should just be its own. There should be a blog
Point
for
your
that.
microphone at you, by the way.
I got that a few minutes ago. I've since adjusted slightly.
Okay.
And tried to make a point to talk in this general direction. I could just have put the microphone over here so it would be,
just out in the
correctly located. But, I really just like looking at you when I talk to you, Mickey.
I appreciate
that's
that.
really what that's about. Anyway, so we could talk about NYC. We could make fun of New York 1 and 2 for entire episodes.
Yeah, actually, that Ripples, they look not very good this year.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, I take a look at their roster. That is not a good team right now.
Somebody apparently offered $5 million for Aaron Long.
West Ham,
and they were like, nope.
They tried to get him last year, and they tried to buy him outright last year. Long wanted to go. The Red Bulls valued him at some insane number, like $15 million. And so he was pissed. He was on the record basically saying, I would like to go, but they are not letting me. And now, to be fair, he's paid pretty well at Red Bulls. He's making like $800,000 or $900,000 a year, so it's not like he's on a $100,000 contract.
How many Yinglings at Red Bull Arena is that?
6, 7. But yeah, so I would look at their roster. It is not good. They Brett Phillips is gone. Luis Robles is gone. They have one DP in Kaku who didn't really do anything last year. They got a bunch of kids. They're basically going full in the youth movement. So they for being in the biggest market in the country, they have just their attendance last year was just terrible. Yeah. They're tarping off the upper decks, so I could see them being in a state of even worse than FC Dallas. Well, FC Dallas their attendance is kind of middling to not very good. Who's the worst attended team in the league right now? Colorado's. Yeah, they do. They're not good, but they're not Colorado.
That's a good question. Who's the worst right now?
Dynamo's pretty bad.
I'd say the Texas teams are pretty bad.
The Dynamo are pretty bad. No, Orlando is bad.
If only there was a way for us to look this up.
Yeah, that's true. Orlando's bad, but they're bad in a way that if they were even minimally competent, their fans would come back. And they've just been so, they haven't made the playoffs for their entire existence, and, they fire their coach every year. So I put them in a kind of different category. I'm talking about a fan base that's more apathetic. It's typically reserved to the MLS 1.0 teams. New England, they have some pretty bad attendances, but they used to do pretty well in the summer, and they look pretty good this year.
How about that Miami team?
Inter Miami?
No, the other one.
What?
The one that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, yes. You're looking at Tenant, so...
I am. So, the worst
the Fire.
was the Fire.
The Fire. Of course. How could I forget the Fire?
Then Colorado.
Yeah.
Then Dallas.
Yeah, Fire.
Then Crew.
Yeah. Yeah. The Crew
then
was
Houston.
Yeah.
So we were all in the
general sense. Yes. But the Fire, that's the clear runaway number one. Terrible. No bad. Not very good. But they're, of course, moving to Soldier Field, so we'll see how that works, although I'm a little skeptical based on the moves they've made because, they were, as you said, linked in on Chicharito as well. But it turns out that they weren't really ever in for him. They were just kind of linked with him. So going back to, the Red Bulls. So I could see the Red Bulls taking that crown this year of worst attended team if they don't do anything else.
So they were 16th of 24.
Yeah.
17,000.
And of course,
that's down. They were down. They were 17,281, down from 18,601, down 1,000 plus.
And that's announced attendance. That's butts in the seats.
Right. Not what
we're probably not going to get with them accurate numbers.
No, because people buy the tickets. And,
yeah. But if they're tarping up the upper decks like they did last year, and it's not like the stadium is 60,000. It's a 27,000 seat stadium, and they basically did not use the upper decks at all last year, except for the high profile games. So,
but year over year, league was down.
Yeah,
just slightly.
Yeah, I think that's due to Minnesota going to a new stadium and didn't have access to their University of Minnesota. So, and they're one of the smallest stadiums in the league. It's like 18,000.
That's actually exactly what it says here.
Yeah, so that accounts for some of the loss of
like you read
MLS attendance. I do my homework on occasion.
Nice.
So anyway, my prediction is the Red Bulls are the league leaders in bad attendance, or league losers, because everyone else has improved pretty much. Colorado's done some interesting things. Columbus is trolling their rivals, which I thought was pretty amusing. Picking up Adi, although who knows, that may backfire on them when they have to deal with Fernando Adi for a year. And Chicago's obviously moving.
Well, Cincinnati's paying him, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so I don't think anybody else is. I think everyone else is mostly improved, but the Red Bulls definitely have not. So, do we have a camera issue?
We're all tilted.
We're kind of on the Batman, old school Batman.
Go. Better. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But
what was the thing I saw today? It was like Cincinnati is going to pay him more to play for Columbus than Columbus paid Zardes to play for Columbus.
Yeah. So Adi made about $1.9 million, or scheduled to make 1.8. Columbus came in when he got waived. Basically, the process is once Cincinnati waived Columbus or waived Adi, any team could come in, and whoever agreed to pay the most would assume would get Adi. But Cincinnati would be responsible for the remainder of his contract. So if they bid, $1, and that was the highest one, then Cincinnati would pay all but $1. Columbus came in at $200,000, so they will pay $200,000. That will be on their budget, but the 1.7 to 1.6 will be on Cincinnati's dime, and they just announced that they bought him out too. They used their one-time buyout, so he won't be on their cap at all, but they're still responsible for paying him.
That seems like too much money for Adi.
Yeah, he wasn't good when he was in his last year with Portland, and he wasn't good when he got traded to Cincinnati and was playing in the USL.
You do have to pay people a lot of money though to go to Ohio, so that could be it. Yeah,
he scored one goal for Cincinnati, and they were just like, and he had a lot of issues. He had the DUI. I've heard things behind the scenes about his behavior with all of his various teams, his work ethic and things like that. And he basically was a persona non grata for every team in the league, save one, Caleb Porter, who he did have his good years with,
and now he's back with.
So, if there's one person who could get something out of what he has left in the tank, it's certainly, you would think it would be Porter. So they're actually looking like a pretty good team. Whether Zardes and Adi are your cups of tea, they're
not.
They're handfuls to play against. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So we can go around the horn on a couple other things. I would say let's touch on the women's qualifying tournament.
Oh, is that actually happening? I didn't see CONCACAF are they actually putting that on? CONCACAF really hadn't announced anything.
There's a match. So Houston, right? This is all Houston. 5:30 tomorrow versus Haiti, Friday versus Panama, and then next Monday versus Costa Rica.
That is a short turnaround. They do not give them a lot of time in between matches.
You know what, though? If Jurgen Klopp were managing these teams, one of them, the kids would play. Yeah. That is what I am certain of.
And to be fair, the U.S. women's national team kids probably could do a representative job against any of those teams.
But quick turn, let's just crank through a qualifying tournament. Why not?
Yeah.
And I think are they all in Houston?
No, no, there's some in
these
Dallas.
Matches all in Houston?
I think there's a set in Dallas.
Okay.
And then the finals in L.A., I believe. Yeah. Yeah, which is...
Oh.
Yeah, it's not even Frisco, which is weird.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I'm not actually very surprised about that. Actually, now that I think about it,
they will probably get better attendance than the Dynamo, though. So.
Well, I do not. That is a distinct possibility. That
I don't know. Like
absolutely
Friday
for sure.
night at what? It's Central Time, right? So Friday night at 7:30, I would go see Panama play
U.S.
national team.
Oh, sure.
That's like a really good Friday night thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd go Tuesday too, but so 5:30 tomorrow Pacific. If you're into that sort of thing, that's actually kind of a neat thing to catch.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be
actually televised.
Yeah,
as it was announced today. About 24 hours before the match is scheduled to go on, maybe 36 hours. So good job. Yeah, they were CONCACAF. That is absolutely the case. Which, I know a lot of people were giving the Federation grief, but it's not the Federation's fault on this one. The CONCACAF controls those deals, which, again, shows you how much they maybe think about the women's game, even though those are some of the highest rated games typically on television. They're much higher rated than the men's, even if the competition isn't, up to the standard. And now we're done.
Now we died.
Yes.
Apparently we're
we need
theoretically...
We need to set up a Patreon for a camera stand.
The camera stand.
Yes. Do we have a technical difficulties GIF or photo?
Yeah, we have one.
Hold
on. I've got it.
It's all right. Let's see.
We're a little...
yes. We are absolutely Batmaning it right now. Oh, that is 100%.
The technical difficulties image is officially that Stephen Fry is leaving with the MLS Cubs.
That's actually that looks pretty good. So, the women, I mean, they should roll through this tournament, qualify for the Olympics with almost no problems whatsoever. I mean, the CONCACAF teams are slowly but steadily improving, but they're just not any match for the women's national team, especially the roster they put out is basically all their heavy hitters.
And I would say after the last cup, like, there were a handful of teams that put the rest of the world on notice, like pretty hardcore. Yeah. And I can only imagine, like, it's probably still going to take a couple cycles for other countries to get there. But as you start to see, like, more and more players playing internationally as opposed to it, in a 6-team domestic league or whatever it is, like, you're starting to see a lot more players end up in England and other places. It can only benefit, frankly, the rest of the world. And maybe we get to a point where some of these things are not just barn burner matches where it's like, oh, first half 7-0.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's fun-ish.
It gets a little old after a while. But it's
75th minute, you're like, do we need to score again? I don't know.
Can you have negative extra time in this? Can you end at the 85th minute?
Game's over. Yeah. So we've got a lot of soccer, and then the She Believes is March 5th. That starts. USA versus England, and then again, quick turn. 3 days later, Spain, and then 3 days later, Japan.
Three really good games. Yeah. You can see the difference in level between CONCACAF than some of the national teams.
It's like 3 scrimmages, 3 friendlies where the USA starts their hitters and demolishes a couple teams. I mean, one would expect. You never know. But all right, so we got a lot of soccer this week, actually.
Which is nice because it's been pretty bare. We had a scrimmage last week for the Sounders that was not televised, and you didn't really learn anything. I mean, a bunch of guys got some fitness. That was about all you could say about that. And they gave up a goal on a really nice free kick. That was the one highlight that I saw from the entire scrimmage. So, but now everyone can stop worrying. Our favorite left back has returned to the team. Again, the wild adventures of Nuhu have come to Southern California. I mean, the team is never worried about that, but they
don't seem concerned at all.
That's also fair to say.
Again, maybe they just have really, really good poker faces.
That is also probably true.
But the fact that they're like, yeah, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. They were just like, knew who's gonna know who was their basic philosophy, which has been the case for he's his own cat, and he's showed up, looks to be in fine shape. He's doing his thing. I heard someone say that it's probably one of those things. He's one of the players that lives farthest away and is most difficult to get to from. And so so it's not like he can go back over an international break unless he's called into the national team. He's not typically probably going back all the way over there. And so they probably said, all right, have an extra week back over in your hometown and just enjoy, and then come back in knowing that you're not likely to get back until November of this year. So again, that makes a lot of sense. And so they didn't express any worry, so I wasn't particularly worried about it. And now he's back, and everything, all is well with the world. And
so last week we talked about there not being any CBA news,
and there's still not any CBA news.
I know it's only we're one day in to the business week.
Yeah, there's
any buzz or anything that's come across your proverbial desk?
Nothing. And I think we talked last week that's no news is probably good news.
Yeah.
Until they announce a deal. It is still set to expire on the 31st, which is Friday?
Does it have one of those weird things like Brexit,
yeah,
where like Brexit starts at midnight, but
12:01.
it's like midnight Switzerland time or something, which is actually like 11 p.m.
Well, yeah,
London time, which is super awkward if you really think about it.
I assume technically it would be Chicago time, Central time, because that's where the Federation is located. I honestly don't think there's any specific. I could pull up the CBA, but
let's not.
Either way, there's not going to be a deal this week. There's almost no chance of that. I won't say 0% because maybe there's some massive breakthrough.
They might have signed it while we were sitting here.
Yes, well, that would be nice. I would like to see an email if that were the case. So there's not going to be there's almost no chance there's a deal this week. They're not going to strike on Saturday at 12:01, and they're highly likely to just continue to work under the old CBA because there are no games to play at this point. There will not be any games to play for another 3 weeks. I think CCL starts on like the 17th. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think I was just looking at that. The games start on like the 18th. So that's the first deadline. I think Atlanta's the first team to play on February 18th at Atlanta or at Motagua. So if they are close to a deal, then I would say they will play those games. If talks are continuing to progress, they will play those games. I think the only way they won't play those games is if they are so far apart that it's not looking good, and then the players decide, well, we have to make a stand, and we have to show that we are willing to follow through on our I won't say threats, but on their stance that they're willing to strike, because at some point you've got to fish or cut bait. And the talks from everything I've heard, the talks have been going amicably. Like they're not, again, if they weren't, then they would be out in the press talking about how the owners are being unreasonable or the players are being unreasonable, or the owners would be saying we can't, MLS is losing money, which is, Garber's standard talking point. Even Garber's not saying anything.
Haven't really seen anything.
He has disappeared.
Ownership.
Yeah. And you won't hear anything. The owners will not say anything unless you get somebody going rogue. That's their standard policy. They do not talk about CBA negotiations. The league website has said nothing, as you notice, and that's typically their stance as well. They won't talk about CBA negotiations. And, so we'll just sit here and wait. This week is an important week, but it's not, things aren't going to blow up if there's not a deal. There's not going to be picket lines on Saturday. And so business as usual will continue. I would say, let's see, today's the 27th, and then the first is Saturday. I would say if you start hearing stuff by the end of next week, so like the 8th, 7th, or 8th, and you start to see rumblings and complaints from the players, because that's where it would likely come from, then you know that things aren't going well. But if you continue to hear nothing, then I would say that's good news.
So you're saying, like, follow Harry Ship on all of the social media platforms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of the guys who would talk. I mean, you're just going to get talking points out of them, I think, at this point, which is basically the players want greater access to the TAM money. They want greater freedom of movement, greater working conditions, and ease or simplification of the budget rules. So you get those 4 talking points from them. But if the talking points start to go to unreasonable ownership or them not cooperating, then you know that there's
different.
Then you know there's a problem.
Has changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as of now, it has not. So they're working. They probably started meeting this week. Need to make some inquiries and see if I can dig out some dirt. But it's been radio silence.
So be positive.
Yeah. At this point, yeah, I'd say still be positive.
All right. So we probably have some players coming.
Yes.
We think that there will be a labor deal.
I still say it's 50-50 on that.
CCL point. Should be fun.
Yes. It should be.
Assuming
they play, yes.
Theoretically.
Assuming there are games that are played.
The XFL will only ruin the field on unlimited number of days.
When is this? Does that start this week?
I can't even keep track.
Yeah,
it sounds about right. I don't know. Next week, who knows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon.
I will not be paying attention to that.
If you want to be cold in a football stadium, go to XFL.
We'll see. What was the other one? The AAF? Is that the one that was there last year? It didn't even make it through the season. They shut things down.
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
It was so irrelevant that it was something like that, though. But the fact of the matter is people are going to come at the NFL over and over and over again, and players are like, "Why would we play in this other league? Like, if you're good enough to have made it into the NFL."
Yeah.
And frankly, like the practice squad players on some of those teams probably make more than some of these XFL players are making.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, practice squad players make decent money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll pay no attention to it whatsoever, except to the
yet
extent
another thing ruining the turf at CenturyLink Field.
Maybe they can get it replaced every 2 years now with all of this wear and tear. That'd be nice.
Can we talk about the official dog of Atlanta United? One of the better tweets that I've seen, speaking of Harry Ship, was is that a charter flight?
Yes. From the Players Association.
From the Players Association, which is fantastic. Yes. And then someone on Reddit posted a picture of the dog, in its scarf or whatever it had on, and the overlay that just said thanks, and it was a joke, even the dogs are being transferred out away from the team. Just it's been here 4 days. That's super messed up. So now that they have a dog called Spike,
that's very cute.
Can we not have a dog? The Sounders.
I mean, they held out on the mascot for as long as they could. So a pet whale is definitely that.
I learned the other day they're actually dolphins. I did see the orcas. I did. I just forgot about it because they're called we all call them killer whales. But I did see them from there. Yeah, it's very true. Didn't spend a lot of time with the killer whales in New Jersey. The wildlife there is, I don't know, dead things that you're stepping on.
A roadkill? Is that
yeah. But I did see the pod of whales from the lighthouse out on.
Nice. We're on Orcas?
Vashon. Yeah.
Oh, Vashon. Well, I guess that's the end.
Which was pretty cool. And it was literally some dude with this ridiculous telephoto lens is don't leave yet. They're coming. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Sat down, hung out on a log, waited 15 minutes. And it's giant things jumping out of the water, and then like they're pretty far away, and you hear them, like breach like a second later, which was pretty cool. And then all of a sudden there's like 150 people down on the beach. Like, where did you even come from? But that was pretty cool. I had not seen them. I don't know if I've seen them except like from a boat while going elsewhere. Like, I don't think I've seen them like on purpose, like hanging out waiting for
that is really cool.
So it was pretty neat. Anyway, Dylan points out that my not from the Pacific Northwest is showing.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bregel says friendly against, what is that again?
Loyola Marymount University. Yeah. Hank Gathers, of course.
Yeah.
Hank Gathers fame.
That's a good shout, Hank Gathers.
Yes. It's a scrimmage, I'm sure. Nothing that of particular interest.
So just Fry at Target Ford.
Yes. You get to experiment with some lineups.
That's fun. By the way, did you see his keeper gloves? They're like kind of flannel. Buffalo plaid is the technical term.
Wow.
They look like if he just had like pajamas that you would wear in your log cabin as keeper gloves. That's what they are. And they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, those sound fantastic. But yeah, I think there's I wouldn't say decent chance. I think there's a chance that we could get some news on both of them this week, the new signings.
Okay. Well, you suggested that they would be around.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll do like media availabilities or anything like that. But I think something's going to happen this week with one of them. I don't think either of them will be on the field because they're going to have to go get their visas, and that, as Nico points out, that does typically take a couple of weeks, even in the best of times. And it's just a whole process. And sometimes they'll wait out of the country because you have to leave. If you're in the country, you have to leave the country to obtain your visa. Right. And otherwise you can just wait, I guess. And so that would seem to make some sense. So when he says that you don't expect them on the field until right before CCL, that's probably right. But would you expect them to be announced before then? Yeah, I think so.
They just show up.
Yes.
Like, who's this person in the lineup?
Yes. That seems to be well, and then again, the thing is, the Sounders are only going to be in Seattle again for like 5 days. I think they get back I think they have breaks. They get back on the 29th. They then have 2 days off, the 30th and the 31st, and then they start training on the 1st. And then they leave for Mexico on the 4th or 5th. So they're only going to be here less than a week. And so there's virtually no time for those new signings, even if they were to be all signed, sealed, and delivered to practice. So, again, it's a kind of unprecedented to have this lack of home interaction with the team. It's just an interesting, it's not ever happened before because they've never taken such an extended trip. They've done like the extended trips to Arizona or South Carolina or LA, but they're always back for like a full week, it seems, in different sections. And then they don't take the entire even when they're in CCL, they wouldn't, leave for several weeks to go play in the competition. They'd be here, have a practice, and then, take off from here to go down to CCL. And this time they're not doing that. They're going straight from Mexico down to Honduras. So it's just, you feel a little distant from the team, I would say, at this point.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to write up stories because they're not around. So we're basically once they get back into town, we're going to be down at Starfire probably like, for multiple hours, doing interviews and just, trying to get the content out.
Get them all in before
they leave.
Yeah.
And
but then they're back. So, that second match for CCL, 27th, then home on the 1st, then home on the 7th, then away for a week, and then back the next week, and then away for a week. And then there's a couple buys in there, which is 2 early buys, actually.
Yeah, that's for CCL purposes.
Yeah, so that's great.
Mm-hmm.
great-ish.
Yes, depending on the advance. Otherwise, they're just breaks that they're going to have to
but between
make
then
up later.
But then we have a couple of these, again, weird stretches where you're like, oh, we have a couple games this month, and then nothing for a really long time. And that's, I think, interesting that you point that out. So it's like a lack of home preseason, a really an even more compressed schedule than last year, which was way more compressed than the season prior.
Yeah.
Some weird gaps, where there's going to be U.S. Open Cup where, the entire team will be on international duty or whatever. Who knows? I cannot keep track anymore.
Yeah, there's just not much you can do about that.
Yeah, it is interesting, no less. But I presume you will all be given ample time to interview all of your players.
Oh, my gosh.
Damn it, Megan. Now we got to go to the Stefan Fry again.
We'll have to invest in a stand.
This is...
Yes. This one was not our fault.
Didn't do it.
Yes.
It is
we're working
off-season.
out the kinks, that's for sure.
That'll work.
Wow.
Perfect.
That's even better than it was before.
I'm amazed.
Yes.
Wow, Carrie may have seen you on camera.
So we'll see how just how the interactions are, because it's just different this time around, with them being gone so much. So we're just making sure that the camera's not having any further issues.
Hooray, technology.
Yes.
So it's 8:35. Somehow we made it an hour with no matches to speak of.
Yeah, right.
No real news to speak of. No old news to speak of. I'm impressed.
Yeah, that's it. Again, the CBA is holding up a lot of stuff. Although now that moves are being made, again, that's another good indication that things are going in a decent direction to get a deal done. Because Garth has repeatedly said that the CBA is completely hamstringing his ability to bring deals in. But I think part of that, and someone made a good point, that part of that had to do with them not knowing what the parameters for a deal would be, and the players submitted their most recent proposal not last week because they had their break, so the week before. And coincidentally, that's when you started hearing news about transfers coming in. And that's probably because Garth now at least has, the low end of what could be happening, and then, if things are more promising for the players as far as investment from the owners, a potential higher end, salary budget. So, again, it's not surprising that moves are starting to be made, and you're starting to hear rumors of players coming in. It is interesting, just based on the rumors, and we should probably talk about Cecchini, who appears not to be along for the Sounders, if he ever was. He appears to be traded from the Sounders down to Union.
Traded, or maybe that just happens to be.
Yes.
We were all talking, so we ended up there. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a pretty big masterstroke by Garth if he's able to unload Cecchini, get the player that they were looking at anyway, and at least to some degree get Cecchini's contract off their books. It wasn't like a massive anchor. Like Audie, he wasn't a DP where you couldn't buy him down with TAM, or like Pirlo, who had like 2 years left on his deal, so you were just had an absolute sunk cost there. Cecchini was only going to be here for a year or 18 months, I guess, from last summer. But that would be a pretty brilliant move if he's able to somehow maneuver him off their books. The only issue, or the only question I would have, is if they're going to have to use their buyout, because they, if those teams have done their homework, they know that the Sounders were basically pushing him out the door, which means his value is about as low.
They know,
but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised about how little teams do their homework on those types of things, because again, unlike the NFL or NBA, you're dealing with a global pool. of players.
Right.
So
we have all scam teams in FIFA.
Yes.
Let's be clear. So,
So it's possible that they still have to buy him out. There was a loan fee to bring him in, and I think he's making like $700,000 a year. So unless if he's able to get
a lot of money for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, just one of those deals that didn't work. Yeah, obviously the Sounders have a very good track record on those high-profile transactions, and even the ones that haven't worked out in the past, like Wolf, they weren't out that much money. In fact, with Wolf, they were, they basically paid for the time he was here, and that was it. So, they lost that, but again, that's not a big deal. But with Cecchini, if he's making 700, we'll say 750, just to use a number that's easy to divide. But if his new team is only willing to take, say, $200,000 or $250,000 of his contract, then that still leaves the Sounders with $500,000 they have to pay, which means they would likely have to buy him out to get him off the books, assuming that's possible. I don't know why it wouldn't be. It's just it's a budget number, and someone has to pay it. If the Sounders pay it and use their buyout, then there's really not an issue. They don't own the player, so that would be the only kind of funky quirk about it. Whereas most of the time when you're using your buyout, like Cincinnati did with Adi, you're buying out the contract that you own. I guess the league goes to contract, but we'll leave that aside for the moment. But so that's the only wrinkle I could see, but we don't have any information on that. And it's possible maybe they got Union to pay the whole thing. I just find that unlikely because they typically aren't paying those types of contracts in Argentina for those types of players who are on loan. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but. Maybe he worked it out, which we already put him up for GM of the year if he's able to wiggle out of that contract and free and clear and not have to use a buyout.
We just slightly switching gears here. We haven't talked about Brad Smith.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, I think he was
is that 100% done?
Well, he's back in Bournemouth. The last I heard is he's
just gone. Like that, he's back on his old deal.
Yeah. So his contract's up at the end.
I saw the picture the other day. So,
yeah. He's in. I mean, he hasn't seen any time or made their lineup yet, or their 18 yet. So he may just be kind of roster filler in case disaster happens. But his contract's up, May 31st or June something like that. At which point he's on a free. But I think he has options in. Like maybe the championship because Bournemouth maybe they get relegated and then they decide to try to keep him as a lower priced player. Maybe he tries to stick it with it in the Premier League, but even championship sides can pay more than the Sounders can.
Yeah. Well, I bring it up because I think we had discussed it towards the end of the year, and we had never really gotten into whether they were going to push to try and keep him or have a loan extended or anything like that. So
I think he is gone until June at the earliest. And again, they've got 2 left backs right now. They got a great deal with him the last time around. They were only paying $600,000, so he was an easy TAM buy down. But he was making 1.2, 1.3. I don't think they're going to pay 1.3 to bring him back, or pay him $1.3 million a year and use all that 10 to buy him back.
Yeah,
maybe unless there's a huge expansion of the salary budget, and they decide they can fit him in. But I think he's only 25, so I'm sure he wants to give it another go. To try to stay in the Premier League for another year or two. So maybe, I don't think he's necessarily gone forever, but I probably wouldn't expect to see him back unless something crazy happens. I wouldn't expect to see him back for another couple of 3 years.
About, so they will definitely re-sign him at some point.
Yes, right.
Because that's
they do. They do have the ability, the uncanny ability to bring older players, not old players, old, but just previous players back. So
any other just random speculation on players out there that you've heard?
Again, it's so hard with them not being here to give you any.
You don't know who Trialist X is.
There's Dylan Cerna is the only trialist, but there could be other trialists cycling in down there right now. Maybe Bradley Wright Phillips is trialing with the team.
That guy's got to show up somewhere, right?
Well, he just got. He's not trialing with LAFC anymore.
Yeah.
He's 35. He only scored 2 goals last year. You got to think he's basically passive. But just a mirror. Maybe he's down there with the team. There are no reporters down there, so it's just impossible to know. So we'll have to wait until Friday or Saturday to get a look at any potential new trialists.
BWP on the Defiance.
I mean, they do typically have one older player.
Yeah.
David Estrada and Nagel.
I mean, that actually worked out really well.
It did. Estrada was their leading scorer. Who knows where they would have been record-wise if he wasn't around. You wonder if they would have won any games.
So I know we talked a little bit about the women's national team. Any other Reign or Defiance kind of thoughts or insights or things you've been hearing about of late?
No, I need to get down there. I want to do some interviews on the Reign stuff. With the new manager appointment. There was obviously some controversy surrounding that. Senator Hart did a pretty good job. They had an interview with Predmore, just kind of going through that whole thing. So I don't know. I would encourage people to go listen to that. That's probably a good place to go. Their season doesn't start up here for a little while longer. So once they get moving, it's they're making a lot of trades. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But that happens every year with the Reign and the NWSL generally. It's just one of those things. As a younger league, so many players just move around.
That draft was confusing.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, so you traded this person here again,
and
now all these picks have changed hands.
It's like, Portland has like 3 of the first 4 picks or something like that.
Who has a pick? Like, I don't know what's actually happening right now.
Yeah, that's just a function of a league that is still trying to find its feet. I mean, hell, the MLS Super Draft isn't much better these days. In fact, it's getting worse, all things considered. So, they're not in any place to claim superiority over over what the NWSL is doing. Yes, but I think the trialists are still with the draft picks are still with the team. That's the one. The Suns were supposed to put out an updated roster last week. They did not. So I'm going to yell at them tomorrow to get that updated, because it's possible that they brought in, as I said, more trialists and some have left. I don't think any of the Defiance players who went down to California have returned. So that means they're still training down there. So that means they are still doing a reasonable job at this point, or the team just wants to have the bodies down there. But they made the big hullabaloo about if the players aren't performing, then we would send them home. No one has been sent home, so all the draft picks are still there, and the trialists presumably are still there, and the Defiance players who went down are still with the team in California. So at this point, they'll probably be there until they get back, because that's the point of having them leave 2 days early?
So next Monday, we expect to have Dave Clark.
Yes.
Former host, friend of the show, and so on the show. He was going to come on tonight, asked to move to next week, so we can probably pick his brain a little bit about Defiance.
Defiance, yeah.
And, what he's doing down there. He's going to be working on Rainiers, actually, and Defiance in 2020 and beyond, which is super cool.
Yep.
So we can talk to him about that. I did want to throw out there, Sky Blue was a pretty big thing, actually. Sky Blue FC in New Jersey is going to be playing at Red Bull Arena, probably because they were like, we have space. Yeah. You should come play here. But they have been struggling to have a consistent place to play, or a place to play.
Well, heck, the Spirit, Washington Spirit, they're going to be playing in 3 venues this year. Yeah. Which
that ticket breakdown was insane.
It's some of that stuff. I mean, I understand it. The prices to rent those venues are expensive, and they are subject to other things being scheduled. This part of the reason that the Reign didn't end up in CenturyLink Field. But again, CenturyLink Field is a massive venue, and for the Spirit, Audi Field seats 20,000. So you think that they'd be able to work a schedule to have them there. But again, they play how many games are they up to now? 26 for the year. See, I think NWSL.
20. It's in the 20s, right? Yeah. I'd have to look.
Okay. So that's 12 to 13 dates on top of the 17 that MLS has. Plus you got the XFL in the case of Audi Field, and then you've got other random concerts.
Yeah, they do other stuff. Yeah.
So at some point you do risk overuse of the field. But you still think you'd be able to fit 12 to 13 dates. But again, you're also talking about having Saturdays and Sundays. There are less of those than overall days, obviously, and so certainly the Spirit and NWSL don't want to be paying on Wednesday night every week. So that obviously impacts. That impacts things too.
Well, although while there is transit, it is not as great as you would like to that particular spot.
Yes, as Source, we were there last year.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
Question
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's not as good as, DC Transit is by and large pretty good.
Yeah.
Not out to that area.
No. Nowhere near what we'd like to see. Adam asked about events coming up. Obviously, we just talked about having Dave next week. So a week from this Saturday,
yes, ECS.
We have an ECS event at the Pharmacy, which is the bar that's below Temple Billiards.
Looking forward to that.
The 8th of February, which I can't believe it's going to be the 8th of February next week. So if you want to, frankly, just learn about getting involved and doing cool stuff with ECS, we'll have a lot of leadership folks, work group leads. So if you want to learn about Merch Crew or TIFO or whatever it might be, subgroups, whatever's going on, coming out. So it should be a good time. 6 to 8. 6 till you leave.
Yeah,
6 to 8 is officially the event.
Plan to be there much longer than 8 o'clock.
Is that evening, so should be fun Saturday night. A week and change before the CCL part of the season gets kicked off. So that's one. I don't know if anything else.
We could plug YachtCon.
Oh yeah, 25th.
Yeah, February 25th.
Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Tuesday. It is. They've got their own dedicated venue this year, so they're not sharing the bar with your random, randos. Thank you. And a great cause, Seattle Children's autism is what the focus is this year, so that's great. They're going to try to raise about $10,000. They will typically have several sounders, rain, some members of the front office. I don't think they've announced the cast and crew. The trophies will be there if you have not had a chance.
Presumably, yeah, and the auction stuff is usually
there's usually
pretty
fantastic
solid all around. Whether it's like Sounders related things or just other stuff.
Yeah, there's usually tons of cool stuff there for auction. I think they're doing some drawings as well, and they'll have food and drink, and they've already sold out a couple of the VIP packages, so that's pretty cool. I think they're going to try to offer a couple of more.
I did enjoy that the VIP was actually elevated and away from everyone else last year. So, that was sarcasm.
The champagne room is. I missed it last year, unfortunately. But,
it was in the champagne room realm, except it was Optimism Brewery. So yeah. Anyway, always a good time, though, YachtCon.
Yeah, go to brownpapertickets.com and just search YachtCon, and you'll be able to find it. Tickets are $20 for the GA, general admission, and then that gets you food and or drink, depending on your preferences. And then, like I said, they'll have a ton of things to bid on or drawings as well, and you get to meet Sounders and Sounder Harders that you've been listening to all these years.
It's going to be a busy week.
Yes.
So CCL, that's going to be a good one. Mm-hmm. So we're all going to be very
so
tired
rest
very
up,
soon.
rest. Yeah, this is your rest week because it starts building up. Assuming we have games, that is.
Nice. That's very positive of you.
Yes.
So just a couple minutes left. Before we close for the night, I think we'd be remiss to not touch on the passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter and 7 other people.
9 total.
Helicopter. Yesterday morning, I was remarking to a couple of folks here that I woke up in the morning, didn't look at anything. I had listened to some of the FA Cup, and then just turned on a movie. And just watched 2 movies in a row and didn't look at any news. And it was weird to open Twitter 4+ hours later or something and just see the, massive outpouring of comments and support and thoughts and things. The more I thought about it last night, and I was reading a lot of articles where people were just talking about, the volume of tweets and other stuff. And they were getting a little bit too minutia. It's interesting because you think about like players who like impacted your life or like that you spent a lot of time watching or whatever, or forget players like authors, celebrities, whatever it is. He's in a very small group of people, like I would say for frankly many of us that are probably sitting right here, that just had like that level of dramatic sports impact.
Gen X,
he's a few years
late
younger
millennials,
than me. I grew up not that far from where he played high school ball. So just like having seen like local regional, news coverage of that, and when he was originally drafted by I guess it was Charlotte at that point, and then traded, like it is not surprising to me the outpouring of support that isn't just coming from Los Angeles. And when you see like kids everywhere who are like frankly personally impacted by him or his family or like teams he's sponsored and like all sorts of other things, it's really it's very, very sad, and at the same time it's very inspiring just to see that many people who are like, wow, I really care about this. And what's going to be interesting is kind of like what comes of this moving forward. It was really interesting to me to see the NBA cancel the Lakers-Clippers game
tonight, or tomorrow.
I can't tell you how, like, if maybe like once ever have I seen a league do that for like a non-current player having passed away. Yeah, like I think the Angels had a pitcher that had died. I don't think they canceled the game. But like that's happened multiple times in like current players in sports leagues, and the fact that they postponed a game,
definitely speaks to the impact he had, on the league and the country. And there's I boycotted the NBA since 2008 and will continue to do so. That said, I was obviously in my formative years. The NBA was number one on my fandom list with the Sonics, and Kobe was getting started just as the Sonics were kind of winding down in the late 90s. They're really good to great teams. But he was a fantastic player, and everyone. It's been interesting to hear the talk about his complicated life, and certainly I wouldn't tell anybody how to feel about him. Given his the sexual assault allegations and the settlement he had, and you're entitled to feel how you want to feel. If he had that kind of impact and was inspiring in your life, then you should absolutely. Express your sorrow that he's gone. I mean, it was, just, putting all that aside, it's just an absolutely horrific accident, and the loss of 9 lives and in any way is terrible, but especially in a helicopter crash like that is just, I just can't imagine. And those who want to, focus or make sure that his law enforcement issues and the sexual assault is not forgotten, and those who have survived sexual assault and want to make sure that part is expressed or focused on. That is, you're right. You can focus on what you want to focus on, and don't tell people how they should feel about it.
Well, that's where you can dig into it if you want to. It's like the Washington Post employee who was like put on leave for tweeting something about assault allegations and such, and again, like, life's complicated.
None of us are perfect.
Everybody can't dictate everything. I think begrudging people feeling like they've had a physical or emotional impact on themselves is, I think you shouldn't be spending your time criticizing people for that. People are going to feel what they feel. If you take this as an educational moment, then great. But I think what was interesting to me, and you never really forecast these things happening. I mean, maybe you do with, someone that's up there in age or has a,
or is wild and out of control
or whatever. Or whatever it is. But I don't think anybody was sitting around going, well, I wonder what's going to happen
next
to
Kobe.
Basketball Twitter if, this person, like, that wasn't, like, literally the day before, you had LeBron and Kobe like interacting, over LeBron's status in the NBA as far as like being was a third highest scorer or whatever it was. Like, at no point was anybody contemplating that discussion. So the outpouring of support or just discussion is just interesting when you want to like kind of look at life and society and like where things are right now.
Yeah, and we could also point out, he was obviously a massive soccer booster in this country. Not only the men's game but the women's game.
And the Latino community, especially in Los Angeles, enjoyed the fact that he spoke the language, like supported different parts of the community, whatever it was. That's a big deal. Obviously has some heritage. I think was it his family in the military.
Oh yeah, he was his formative years were in Italy.
Right?
6 or 7 years he was in Italy.
So it was just very sad and very interesting as someone who likes to watch people, and sort of see how we all react to things. I expect continued outpouring of support. I am actually very interested to see what happens at the Super Bowl, because sports don't really cross from one to the other very, very frequently. But I could absolutely see something happening. You saw it at the Grammys. It will not surprise me, given that the Super Bowl is coming up this next weekend, to see something happen there.
Yeah. We shall see.
So it's just about 9. We should be back here next Monday, hopefully with Dave Clark at the Berliner. Thanks to everybody who's down here at the bar. The rain has decided it would
come back,
re-emerge seriously. Thanks to all of you watching at home.
Yeah, the Sounders should have at least a couple of practices in, so we'll have some updated information.
Get that scrimmage information from Loyola.
Yes, very exciting.
All right, thanks all.